Hi, Year 6. Welcome to your second lesson of the week. This week, a reading lesson all about balanced discussions, continuing some of the work learning you were doing last week. Before we start, I'm just going to quickly run through what we did last week because it's going to help you with your learning for this week. And what I'm going to do on Teams is put on the basic documents you need from last week. So the first thing we did, we're looking at the WAGgle to talk about the structure, language, audience, and purpose. So if I just load up that, really important this document because this is what a really good example of a balanced discussion would look like. So if you remember, we read through it, we discussed the structure of it, how it's put together, the language which is used, which is mainly formal, but with some shifts in informality through brackets, who it's aimed at, the audience, it depends on the magazine you're writing for, with teenagers, adults, and the purpose, and this is very important, the purpose of the discussion is to write from both sides, um, and to not influence the reader's decision too much. You can give your opinion at the end, but really you want the reader to make up their own mind based on the arguments you put forward to both sides. That document's going to be very useful for you in terms of structuring your own balanced discussion, because I would use that as a sort of a template for how I want to set mine out. Okay. We also looked at using how we use cohesive phrases to join ideas about cats and dogs. Remember we practiced that. That really useful document, the cohesive phrases cheat sheets. Again, I would use that this week because that's going to give you lots of the phrases you're going to need to help you to write your one. And then on Thursday, before unfortunately we had to, before we couldn't come into school on Friday, but on Thursday we looked at how to expand our points, and you all did really, really well on this. I was really impressed on this when I was marking it on Thursday night. How you take a basic point, first in favour of cats. Many people think that cats are better because they clean themselves, and then you can expand on it by giving more detail using some of those phrases as to why that's a really good reason as to why cats are good. And it just meant that your writing had more depth to it and more detail, and your arguments were more convincing. So those are the things we looked at last week, and that will help you a lot with how to create your own balanced discussion. Okay, and I'll put those documents on Teams for you to use through this week. Getting on to this week then. So this week we're going to create our final exhibit published pieces. So we're going to choose a new topic and plan it out, or if you want to, we did practice a little bit about cats and dogs last week. If you really were into that topic, by all means, I'm quite happy for you to write your own version of cats versus dogs all the way from start to finish. But we'll come on to that in a minute. Day 2, which will be tomorrow, draft the introduction and argument 1. Day 3 should be Wednesday, draft argument 2 and the conclusion. Day 4, proofread it, edit it, and create the final published piece. And I think what I'm going to try and do is try and pull together some templates that you could use for your final version. Or if you're feeling quite creative, by all means go and create your own final version that looks a bit like a magazine style piece. And on day 5, we'll have finished by then. So day 5, we'll do a comprehension. So planning our balanced discussion. So this is today. What I've done is, I think if we were in school, we'd have concentrated on all doing the same sort of version, but because you're at home, I think you might have a little bit more freedom to do a bit of research yourself. So I've come up with some ideas for the types of balanced discussion you can write. Now, what I'm thinking is, we're going to write from the perspective that we're working for a magazine. I've been asked to put together a balanced discussion text to go in the magazine. So here are some of the options that I've come up with. So Pet Monthly magazine, a bit like we practiced last week. Which makes the better pet, a cat or a dog? But it could be a rabbit or a hamster, or really it could be any sensible pet choice. So you can be quite adventurous with that. If you're interested in doing about animals, you could write for Pet Monthly magazine and write a balanced discussion about 2 different types of pets and argue for and against either option. If we want to do cats versus dogs, by all means do that, because although we practiced a little bit, we never really fully completed one. But if you've got other things you want to write about, go for that. However, if that doesn't really interest you, Total Film magazine, they would like someone to write for them about who is the greatest superhero. So I've got some options there: Batman versus Superman, or you could do Wonder Woman versus Captain America. Or again, if neither of those 2 options appeal, really you can choose any superhero choice you want, as long as it's a sensible one, and compare the two. Slightly different one, First News Magazine. Obviously, we have in school sometimes, the newspaper. Couple of options you could do for them. Should children be given homework? Yes or no? Should children be able to eat chocolate for breakfast? Yes or no? I know you're probably going to have an opinion on that. I know you're going to probably have a favourable side, but remember, for the balanced discussion, if you write it, you've got to argue from both sides and not present any bias. You can give your opinion at the end. And then finally, if none of those options appeal to you, I did talk to a few of you about this last week. You could write for Match Magazine, and you could argue who is the greatest footballer, Messi or Ronaldo. And again, same principle applies. You'd have that formal tone. You'd argue for the advantages of Messi, and then argue the advantages of Ronaldo, and then come up with a conclusion at the end, which you would have your personal opinion in. All right. So I'm quite happy for you to choose whatever you want. If you've got another question that you think in your head works really well for balanced discussion, then go for it. If it's a really sensible one and it allows you to write a really good argument for both sides, then be adventurous, try something else out. But I think there's plenty of options there for you to pick from. Okay, so that's your first thing to do, is to choose what you're going to write about. And then today, what you need to do is you need to research online, or just use use the knowledge you already have about your chosen topic. If you know a lot about superheroes and you're going to do Batman versus Superman, you will already know some of the traits and characteristics of Batman and Superman, but also use the internet to find out more about them. Okay, so today you need to gather 5 arguments for one side and then 5 arguments for the other side. So if you're doing Batman and Superman, 5 arguments for why Batman's a really good superhero, and then 5 arguments for why Superman's a really good superhero. And you might want to think about as well, what is your personal opinion and why, ready for that conclusion at the end. What I put together are a list of some really good websites or some starting point websites that might help you when you've chosen your topic. Kiddle.co is just quite a good website in that it allows you to search for things. So say I was doing hamsters, learn about hamsters. It's like a kid encyclopedia, and it gives you lots of information about hamsters. So say you're doing hamsters versus guinea pigs, there's all sorts of stuff on there about hamsters, and it'd be the same for guinea pigs. So that might be a good website for you to go on, and you can just search through there, have a read through, and then start thinking about what are the advantages of hamsters, what are the advantages of guinea pigs. That's one. I've also put on very quickly, I had a look through to see if there's any websites that would be useful for the different topics. So if you chose to do about animals, this website's quite good because it lists some of the different qualities of different animals. Okay, so depending on which one you choose, say you did rabbits, it tells you a little bit about rabbits and why they're good choices. Let's go back. Superheroes, there's a database all about superheroes I've just found, which look quite useful if you're going to do an argument about superheroes. So say you were doing Iron Man versus Spider-Man. It tells you a little bit about the character, and then if you look at powers, it tells you some of their traits, things that they've got as powers and things, which might help you to put together your arguments for that superhero. Homework, there's a couple of articles you can read that I've found. Chocolate for breakfast, there's an article you can read if you're interested in writing about that one. And Messi versus Ronaldo, this is a website where somebody's basically done a bit of a balanced discussion about Messi and Ronaldo in a similar way. And you could have a look through that to see some of the traits of the two different people. So, first thing to do is to choose your what you're going to write about, and then second thing is to go through and do a bit of research, read about the topic you're doing about, and then finally you need to put together your 5 arguments for one side and 5 arguments for the other. So that is your plan. Now let me show you what I mean by that. So I've just made this. This will be what you'll fill in today. So you're going to have a heading, which will be who you are writing about. So what topic is it? So which is the greatest superhero? Wonder Woman versus Spider-Man, for example. Your introduction, you basically just introduce the argument, explain why you're writing for that you're own for both sides, and you won't give your personal opinion. You can look at the waggle for how you set that out. Then what I want you to do after doing your research today is to gather briefly in note form your 5 points for each side. So let me show you what I've done. This is your waggle to follow for planning. Say I was doing who is the better superhero, Batman versus Superman. Who am I writing for on the first argument? Batman. Having done some research, these are some of the characteristics and traits of Batman that I think make him a really good superhero. So point 1, I put he's courageous. He hasn't got any superpowers, but still defends Gotham. He's just like any one of us. Point 2, he's committed and responsible. He dedicates his whole life to defending the city. Point 3, he's brave. He's faced his own fears. He was actually scared of bats before becoming the Batman. Point 4, he has lots of gadgets. He has a massive gadgets, a bit like James Bond. And point 5, he has the Batmobile, which is a very, very cool sports car. So I picked out 5 things specific to Batman that I can write about in the reasons he makes a really good superhero. It's just in note form. It's not a full expanded point. It doesn't use cohesive phrases. It's not written correctly at this point. It's just a plan. All right. I've then done the same for Superman. So point 1, he's godlike. He's a bit like a god as he comes from a totally different planet. Point 2, he has the ability to fly. So whilst Batman doesn't have any special powers, Superman has lots, such as the ability to fly at the speed of light. And I could expand on that point as to why that's so useful. Point 3, he's committed. Despite not being from a human or from Earth, he dedicates his life to protecting Earth. So I can contrast that against Batman being committed. Well, actually, Superman's very committed because he doesn't even come from Earth. Point 4, he has X-ray vision. So he's got the superhuman powers. It allows him to see through walls. And then point 5, he's actually quite invincible in that nothing can defeat him other than kryptonite. So he's very, very powerful. So what I've done there is planned out my 5 points I'm going to make for Batman and my 5 points I'm going to make for Superman. I haven't expanded on them yet. I haven't written them properly yet. I've just noted down in planning form. In my conclusion, I'll summarize those key points. I'll offer my personal opinion, and I might ask the reader what they think. Okay. So at the end of today, I'd like you to complete that for your topic, whatever it's going to be about, whether it's about pets, whether it's about homework, whether it's about Messi versus Ronaldo, whether it's about hamsters versus guinea pigs. I don't mind. If it's about superheroes, I don't mind. If you do Batman and Superman, feel free to use some of my ideas, but I wouldn't like to see it just copied out completely. Try and come up with some of your own things as well, and complete that plan, and then that will be your structure for the rest of this week. Okay. I hope that all makes sense. I hope you're quite excited about the different areas you've got to write about. There's lots of choice there. Do not write the full balanced discussion today. Research it. Think about the qualities of the different things you're going to write about, whether it's hamsters or guinea pigs, what separates them as pets, and then fill in the planning grid like so. Okay, thanks for listening, guys. Have fun with that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.